and to look ahead to this one against Manchester City. But in the minutes leading up to this, there is breaking news. How exciting. Breaking news from a Liverpool point of view. Rob Gutman, presenter of the Anfield Wrap's Gutter Show. Liverpool have reached a £7 million deal with Fulham for Fabio Carvalho. Have they, Rob? You tell me through it.
Well, Neil, from what I understand, by having read Fabrizio Let's Go Romano's Twitter just moments ago, Liverpool have agreed a £5 million fee for Fabio Carvalho, with I think about 1.8 million's worth of add-ons.
Marvellous.
Fabrizio Let's Go Romano is also saying that there are no plans to loan him back to Fulham or any other fucker. I'm quoting here, and he's expecting to join in Liverpool's pre-season training, and he's been to see visited Jurgen Klopp, and Liverpool and Fulham are very happy with each other, as is Carvalho. And I thought, when I heard this news, that we could have a new song, because he's also Portuguese. We could sing something about him being better than Diogo, don't you know? His name is Fabio Carvalho. There's lots of O's, but it's going to work somehow, this song.
It is. It'll be a nightmare for the Whittle contingent, but they'll work it out. Gareth, there is ultimately, I mean, this is Liverpool's first sign of the summer. As daft it is to say, this lad's been getting a lot of game time in the Championship. He's part of a side that's about to win the Championship, it looks to me. From a distance, they're going to get promoted. Fulham, I'd be really surprised if they don't. Liverpool, the lad is out of contract in the summer. It would have gone to a tribunal. It might have been more. It might have been less than a tribunal. It would certainly be more if his contract wasn't up this summer. It's another part. Sorry, not the first part. It's another part of Liverpool demonstrating their ongoing renovation program of the front three, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and also it's a demonstration that they're being clever in the transfer market, and they're also good at it, because there are plenty of other clubs listed as being interested in him. He's only 19 years old, and he's performed well at the top end of the Championship, which we all know is traditionally difficult, I would say, for your flair player.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit sort of industrial at times, but he's been playing a lot, 31 appearances, 8 goals, 7 assists. So, that's all good for a 19-year-old lad, isn't it?
Absolutely unreal.
And look, it's probably going to be one of those where I think, unlike Mr. Diaz, who we're going to come on to talk about, no doubt, it probably will be back to the old school way, I would guess, of, you don't see him once he signs up for Liverpool. He has to find the Jurgen Klopp way, and he'll be on the bench maybe. And, he's not going to be displacing anyone, I wouldn't think, from day one. But nevertheless, it's exciting. And it's also good as well, I think, to be like reading stuff like this, like now, because like, no matter what Liverpool do, someone somewhere always seems to get a cob on that we're not buying someone. So we are.
AR is right, Lizzie. It was meant to happen back in January. It is worth bearing that in mind. So it's not, it's not coming from left field, this by any stretch of the imagination. But Liverpool's wholehearted commitment to it, I think, has come from minor sort of left field. In January, from nowhere, he was linked a lot with West Ham. There was other bits and pieces going on. All of a sudden, Liverpool may clearly want him. They all but secure him. They've secured him now. He does appear to be, to have been an interesting, an integral one that Liverpool wanted. And from there now, they've secured him, and they'll be using him in the summer.
Yeah, I think I'm quite shocked that they've got it over the line now. To be honest, I was wondering whether there'd be some sort of other teams coming in, obviously, with the fact that we didn't get it over the line. And I know there was a lot of talk saying, we will come, and he really wants to come to Liverpool and stuff like that. But you never know what can happen. You never know, especially that earlier on in the season and so far away from the summer transfer window. But again, it's just looking like good business. And if whoever's been doing this business, let's hope it's Julian Ward, and this is him, staking his claim nice and early, saying he's going to get things done early, quite handy, following in Edwards' shoes. But listen, I'm happy with it. I mean, one of my questions is, and I think someone's just asked it on the chat, is more like, what do we do with him at that age? Like, what does he come straight in, and does he go straight into the side, or is this one where we get him in and we put him out on loan? But I tell you what, we cross that bridge when we come to it. He looks like a great little prospect.
What the question, Rob, I think, is firstly what will happen to him if we're saying he's not going to be loaned out next season. Then perfectly reasonable. For me, it's where do Liverpool envisage him playing? Do they see him as a front three option or as a midfield option? I think it's difficult, to go beyond that, whether it would be central or off a flank in a front three sense, or whether or not Liverpool see him, as I say before, as someone who can come through and play from a little bit deeper. What do you expect?
I don't know. We did a lot of research, and we had a lot of conversations about him towards the end of the window. I remember we spoke to a Fulham guy who said he in a 4-2-3-1 he played behind the striker. So is he a 10? Is he a? There was some talk whether he might be a very attacking 8, but he can clearly come in off the flanks. Is it in a Coutinho style way? I just don't know. And given that Klopp, is capable of moving people around, will and bringing them in as one thing and turning them into something else. Witness Gini Wijnaldum, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones even. It's really, really hard to call where they see this one. I mean, you could build a case for him. Is he a Bobby Firmino deputy stroke replacement? Is he going to have false 9 aspirations? I just don't know. I do suspect they've brought him in to do bits now. I mean, he's one of the top players in the Championship at the moment, so I don't think he's getting parked anywhere. I think Fabrizio Romano is saying there is no intention to loan him out. I mean, with him coming in and Diaz coming in, you're seeing some top players not getting into matchday squads now. I think they're reading the runes. So there's going to be a lot of movement out of Liverpool this summer, and I think it's not just Origi who's going. There's a lot of people who'll be looking over their shoulders whose contracts are running up, and I'm looking at Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Minamino, possibly Naby Keita, although things with him could change quickly. So yeah, I think those are the indications. And quite frankly, our front three's contracts are running down soon. Maybe Bobby Firmino's got his eye on a big move.
There's only a couple of players, Gareth, who play, I would say, if we delineate the roles away from, firstly, the idea of playing, not playing left-hand side of the midfield 3 or right-hand side of the midfield 3, but there's not many players who play both in Liverpool's midfield 3 and in the front 3. So, for instance, one of those could have been Curtis Jones, and every now and again Liverpool will flirt with him back in the front 3, but I think they see him as a midfielder. Chamberlain is arguably the only one who moves between the two. And that's why I do sort of wonder if in the short term he may well be replacing Chamberlain in the squad. For me, though, it only looks to me like it's central. I think he's either going to be lined up as someone who plays in the front 3 through the middle, or he's going to be lined up as someone who's going to play in the midfield 3, off to one side a little bit, but as a central midfielder, as a typical number 8. That's what I think from everything that's been said, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's where he's been central for Fulham, hasn't he? So, and like you read up on him, like Rob saying before about looking into what he's done already and things like that, and uses both feet, presses. You used to a lot of the type of football that Liverpool do, but yeah, I think Oxlade-Chamberlain's probably the obvious shout. I think for me, he's been really disappointing this season. I think every time that he's sort of had an opportunity, he's not really taken it. You've seen him look frustrated, either with himself, the manager, or both, when he's had opportunities and he's been hauled off because he's not taking the opportunity. Even in League Cups games and things like that, where it's been opposition that you would expect him to shine against, he hasn't really done it, and it does feel a little bit to me like it's kind of time up for him now. I think he's going to want more football than he's currently getting at Liverpool.
I think he's going to be one more integral to a football team, and that's what he could sort of do with now for himself and for his enjoyment.
I mean, he's had, I'm looking at a list of minutes here, and he's had like 1,500 minutes. He's had 17 starts. He's been involved in 29 matches. So, on the surface, that's not that bad. It's more than Thiago, Tsimikas, Keita, Jones, Milner, Minamino, Joe Gomez. He's quite high up the list. But can anyone say something he's particularly done?
He does well in January, to be fair, when he plays off the right in attack, and that's what sort of grabs me. He looks like he could be a finisher, but my point is, we've got a big queue of footballers who are going to be doing that before he is.
There was a weird thing, wasn't there, of him sort of where he was sold as that to us a little bit. I think pre-season there was talk of him being a false 9 type player and things like that. Again, it just feels a little bit like Liverpool don't really know what to do with him. I've heard a lot of talk on even Anfield Wrap shows recently about, well, if he doesn't get a game here, when does he get a game? And then that game that everyone was talking about comes and goes and he wasn't involved.
Yeah.
And look, you might still get a go somewhere this month because there's loads of football.
Brace in the derby, written all over him.
Well, you're right, mate. I mean, anyone getting a brace in the derby is good for me. I mean, there could be up to 4 or 5 players getting a brace in the derby.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just
more braces than Bobby Ball.
I just think, well, he's on. Hey,
for the kids.
Yeah, he's the money he's on is the thing as well. And he's among the top earners at the club, and we're not getting a bang for our buck currently from him.
Absolutely. I think
Reportedly turned down a move to Newcastle in January, by the way, Neil.
All right, okay. Excellent stuff, Rob. Excellent detail.
So who knows where he ends up.
Smart from Newcastle as well, fits the profile of what they should be doing. Let's talk then about Benfica. Let's talk about Tuesday night on the pitch. Rob, Liverpool ultimately end up cruising away with the game in its final throws. There's lots of, it's a strange performance, a strange result / discussion afterwards, because Liverpool really could quite comfortably win 3 or even 4-0 up at half time in that one. I thought it was, in lots of ways, I think you can still take for granted the idea of excellent away wins in Europe from any point of view. 3-1 away from home, even in the non-away goals era, it's an excellent win in the quarter-final of any competition, at least of all the Champions League.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a result we'd have taken in a heartbeat beforehand. All the talk going into the game was, let's get the result that makes the second leg, if not quite a formality, one that is considerably less pressurised and gives us a chance to maybe rotate 1 or 2 in this really, really extremely condensed run of fixtures. And it's really mission accomplished. And in truth, although there was a 15-minute spell where it didn't feel like it was done at something of a canter, I do think had Konate not made that, it is an uncharacteristic error, and they score to make it 2-1, we might have been talking about a really sublime Liverpool performance up there with the Porto performance, Porto plural performances away in Portugal. I think Liverpool were outstanding in that first half. We were so defensively concentrated. We were in control of the football match, and we created exceptional chances. I mean, Salah should put it beyond doubt just before half-time, but there's other chances for Diaz and Trent Alexander-Arnold in that half. The quality of the chances is really, really high. And even though we concede in the second half and they have a half chance and a bit of a penalty shout that VAR throws out, we're never in any real danger of letting them back into that game. And again, we score a great third, and Diogo Jota, Jesus Christ, you know, for an incredible finisher, he hasn't got. He's racking up a bit of portfolio of glaring misses. It's not as bad as his one against Wolves, but that was a terrible miss. I'm going to say it. I think Diogo can take that criticism from me, having bagged 20 and having the season of his life. But yeah, it was a consummate Liverpool performance if you look past the noise halfway through it.
What you miss, Lizzie, is what occurs to you when you watch those games is we get through the first 15 minutes, it goes the way in which it goes, everyone moves themselves along, Benfica have a bit of a go. And then Liverpool start to play at a pace that Benfica have got no sense. They've never experienced before, apart from maybe when they played Bayern Munich in the group stages. And then Liverpool take that pace and then they up it again. And you can take that sort of stuff for granted. That is the difference ultimately. There's obviously differences in technique because that's part of being able to play at that pace, is being able to look after the ball at that pace. But it is this speed that Liverpool are suddenly able to move at that not only can Benfica not really handle, but they're genuinely not used to ever facing. And that's why you are left in a position where Liverpool are spurning chances to not be able to be 4-5 ahead by half time.
Yeah, it was... I don't want to say it felt easy. I don't know if it was that, but I'm completely with you. We just looked a million times better than. But I think that's obviously the way that they play as well, and how the Portuguese league plays as well. It's a very different picture to what was the other game that night, which was Man City Atletico Madrid. Completely different setups, completely different ways of playing, and it just played into Liverpool's hands. And I thought it would. I was a bit annoyed. I was being spoiled. I really wanted to be about 3-4-5 up in the first half because I was a bit annoyed that we were, I don't know, scuffing our chances. But listen, I thought it was an electric first half performance. I thought Konate was exceptional. And I just think, like, for me, not that I ever thought in that first half we were in any sort of danger of them getting back in it necessarily, but we were on their turf. We were coming to half time. You know, they're a top European side. They're going to have their minutes. They're going to have their time. And they did, didn't they, in the second half? They had a bit at the time. They had quite a lot of the ball at the start of the second half. But I thought the first half was absolutely brilliant. And it was just such a shame to see us come out in the second half and drop off a little bit. But this is the thing. This is why I'm not that bothered about necessarily going too much into detail on that specific performance, and that we were very much here for results, and that was a very big result. And I'm all right with them scoring, because I would have been probably shocked if they didn't, given the nature of the tie. And like I say, that they need their time on the pitch as well, and they done quite well with the time they had.
They, Gareth, they are a side. We said before the game, they've scored in every game they played this year. So I think they were going to have a little moment. They've got the lad up front who was a decent enough finisher. It was going to come for them. They were going to find a way to force the issue. For me, it's that Liverpool then actually managed the game really quite well. It doesn't always feel like it's a funny thing, isn't it, managing the game? Because when the game is being managed, you can sort of convince yourself it's not, and then only in hindsight, when you either watch the game back or just think about it again, you're aware that Liverpool, bar maybe 3 or 4 minutes after it went 2-1, Liverpool just had complete control of it, even if not much happens.
That was it. You're away from home in a Champions League quarter final against any opposition. That shouldn't be easy, and for a lot of it, Liverpool made it look easy. They had the ball, they were in control, even on the points where you felt the crowd was up a little bit. Them getting a goal obviously provided that little lift, but that's their only chance in the 90. So for all the talk that they've been putting goals away a lot, and I think they'd scored like 70 in the league up to that point, they weren't troubling us. It was fairly comfortable, and I was more than happy with it. And if anything, if you want to be critical of Liverpool in any way, it would just be that they didn't go and score really good chances at the other end. And I thought their goalie was a little bit fortunate with some of his saves. Equally, you can probably point at Liverpool players and say, should have been a bit more clinical there, should have done this, should have done that. That's certainly what we were saying to each other when we were watching it, I remember. But, you've got to be happy with 3-1. It's literally, I'd say, a quarter-final of the Champions League. So, whatever the scoreline, really, you can't be taking the second leg of a quarter-final of the Champions League easy as such. You've got to be getting the job done. And look, if people want to look at it in those terms of, obsessing over the minutes, managing the minutes, getting different people on the park and all that, Liverpool can still rotate for that second leg and be absolutely fine. Because we'll be at home then. It's our crowd behind us. There's the semi-final, a touch away.
Yep.
I'd be very, very surprised knowing the mindset of this group if they messed that up.
I think, Lizzie, I'm sure you'll bear this out. It was quite some atmosphere in that ground, I thought, on Tuesday night. The minute they got their goal, they never quietened down that crowd. And the minute they got their goal, they were really, really lifted. Liverpool did very, very well to then stay calm and just reassert themselves in that match. It's not to be understated that. It's difficult to assess Benfica's level in assessing the scale of the achievement, I suppose. I said beforehand, I was talking to a few Anfield Wrap people in Lisbon. I said, I reckon maybe they're about Wolves level, Benfica, given they're third in the Portuguese league, maybe they're 7th or 8th in England if they were playing in our league. I think if you go away to Wolves and win 3-1 in that manner, that's a hell of a Premier League away performance there. Maybe Benfica aren't as good as Wolves. I think they are, though. They've got a forward in Darwin Núñez who's threatens to be European elite level, maybe. So they're not a terrible side by any stretch, Benfica.
Last little thing on it, Lizzie, is Keita obviously impresses. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we're talking about Man City selection questions and all of that. Diaz wins man of the match. I think it always helps if you score the last goal in a game for that sort of thing, and it's the sort of goal that it is. But he was yet again very, very exciting to watch.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely just gets me off my seat every time that I'm watching him. And I feel like, we're so spoiled with the forwards that we've got that it feels like any sort of option that comes on the front three, but this fella got the pace. And I feel like he reminds me a little bit of Suarez with his skill. I'm not saying he plays like Suarez, anything like that, just some of his movement, some of his skill. I don't know, just reminds me a little bit of him. And I absolutely love watching that lad play. And if I'm being honest, just because of the team selection against Watford, I did think he'd start. But, and I presume we're going to come on to talk about this, but I'm starting to think now that at the moment that might be our best front three, and that is credit to that lad playing on the left. Because to bump Sadio Mane off, who by the way is picking up, I think, some pretty decent form, to sort of come in and cement your position, if you want to call it that, on that left-hand side after Mane's occupied it for so long, and really give him a good go to the point where people say he should be starting every game in that position. I think that says everything.
Okay, this has been the part one of Talk Live this week. If you listen to this as a podcast coming up right now, you've got John Gibbons talking to Chris McIntosh about Silent Sleep's album launch at Future Yard over in Birkenhead. Lots of great stuff happening over in Birkenhead. Do pay attention to it. Loads and loads going on. But one of the things that's going on Saturday night is Silent Sleeper playing there. And there will then be Liquidation making an appearance at Future Yard. And last week I was in Austin, Texas to do a book event for the book I wrote with Michael McCambridge called Red Letters. And there's me talking to Michael about that as well over in Austin, Texas. All of that is available if you listen to this as a podcast. This is TAW Live, and that's the way it works. But if you're going to just stick with us live right now, we are back, and we are back to talk about Liverpool's game against Manchester City at the Etihad. There are some games that are epoch defining. There are some games that will have resonations across an entire generation. There are some games that will be absolutely huge and talked about for many a year. That is happening at Goodison Park, 12:30 on Saturday morning. But there's a pretty big game following it up on Sunday at 4:30 at the Etihad. And Gareth, the first thing I think, and the thing I want to say about this the most, is 12 months ago, we wouldn't have been able to go. 12 months ago, it would have been played in front of behind closed doors. This Liverpool side last season was toiling massively. Huge injury crisis. They have pulled themselves round. They pulled themselves round from that injury crisis, and this year there was a period of time where they were 14 points behind. They have turned this game into the absolutely enormous game that it is in two different ways. Once 12 months ago, once right now. This is a Liverpool side that's shown such resilience. We should be so proud of them before the ball's kicked on Sunday. And if they win, my God, it'll feel absolutely enormous.
Absolutely. All of that and more, because I think what's interesting, it's come out of both camps now, whether it be players, managers or whatever, you can see them hinting at something that they know football fans don't particularly want to hear. But that is both teams can't win the league. And they're both brilliant sides. And look, I'm looking at a graphic right now, which was on The Athletic yesterday morning or this morning, can't remember either way, Ollie Kay's piece about the two sides. And he says there, from between August 2018 and April 2022, City have won 338 points, Liverpool 337. And that sort of says it all, particularly when you think about, the period where we stopped winning points and we had that 6-game spell at Anfield.
When Gutman called for the manager's head.
Yeah, all of that. And that was awful and horrible. And
Gutman.
It was awful and horrible of Gutman and to be a Liverpool fan at that point. But, they very quickly pulled it back round and they've gone back at a pace again. And, the 14 points thing, yeah, we had 2 games in hand at the time, but, everyone was doing the thing of saying, even the positive people, I think, were saying things like, but you'd rather have the points and all that kind of stuff. And we've clawed it all the way back, 10 wins on the spin. City haven't done a lot wrong, by the way.
Nope.
They just drawn 2 games and lost to Tottenham Hotspur and won everything else. And it's like, but that's how these two sides have driven each other on. The standards are unbelievable, ridiculous almost. And, these lads, our lads, have put absolutely everything into this. And I can't tell you, and I don't think anyone can tell you with certainty what happens on Sunday. And that's why it's so interesting. It's like one of those things, like old school heavyweight clash between two boxers where everyone fills the pub, even people who don't like boxing, because they want to see what happens, because no one really knows. And this is one of them for me. City are so good, Liverpool are so good. There's so many good individuals on both sides, 2 world-class managers, all of those things.
Yeah.
It's so hard to know what's going to happen. And I think it's one of them, look, I'm cracking on a bit now compared to when I was a football fan, when I first started going and all that. And, a little bit of me is like, yeah, I've seen a lot of these scenarios before and all this kind of thing. But this is different. And I genuinely feel nervous about doing it. In the build up to this, I was doing a preview show before. And my stomach was going a bit off it because I was just like, I don't know what to say to you. For weeks and weeks and weeks, we've been sitting in front of microphones saying, Liverpool win this. Liverpool are the favourites for this. No problem at all. This is different, obviously.
This is different. To quote not the late, but the great Kev Walsh, Rob Gutman, we've all seen footy. And I've always liked that as a lie. Well, we've all seen footy. Sunday feels a bit like an example of the sort of football you've just not seen very often. When Gareth's saying there about it's hard to even predict. I can't even imagine quite what the first 10 minutes looks like. And I'm saying that as someone who has seen footy. And that's why it is absolutely compelling as far as I'm concerned. I've got no idea quite how we're going to approach it. I struggle to say how they're going to approach it because I think their manager's much more pragmatic than people suspect he is. He's more likely to change, I think, in a few senses than our manager is. I am almost at a loss about how this one plays out, other than the fact that it'll be compelling from the first kick.
Yeah, it's all brand new, like a virgin, touched for the very first time. I don't know. I tell you what Gareth's saying. I don't quite remember feeling quite the way I do about this in some sort of unique niche way. I mean, echoes of 2014 when they came to Anfield, and we were able to turn that title chase in our favour, albeit that we let it slip. So it's definitely got echoes of that. It's hard to know how Guardiola will approach. I mean, I think actually I don't know how either manager will approach it. I think if I'm Pep and I'm City, the draw is an absolutely fine result for them. I think they'd love to deal us a near killer blow by beating us. Of course they would. But I think they'll think they can do that by being ready, by just waiting for us to come and picking us off.
Let me come back to you on this, Rob, and then I'll bring Lizzie in very patiently. There's a thing that occurred to me today. The game theory of it is if we win, we still need to win every game from now until the end of the season. If they win... Sorry?
Not so, because we'd have a 2-point lead with a superior goal difference.
Yeah, but they're going to twat someone 11-0. So that's taken out the equation. Yeah. So we need to win every game from now until the end of the season to be sure that we win the league if we win. If they win, then they've given themselves a buffer. What I think is really interesting is I'm going to ask you whether or not you take a draw in a minute, and everyone's going to get that question at the very end. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. I'm going to ask you to take a draw. So be prepared for that. But that's what I think is really interesting. It occurred to me today, the game theory of it is for them, if they win, it means they can lose between now and the end of the season, and they've got that buffer. For us, it will not. We need to win. If we draw or win, we still need to win every game from now until the end of the season. If they win, they have given themselves a buffer. And I just think that's a really interesting psychology. There is that thing that they get if they win that we would not get.
No, we do. I'm sorry, I'm not having it. They get a definite buffer, but because there would be if by winning 1-0, there would be a further goal difference swing of 2, and it's 5 at the moment. There would be a 7 lead on us. Now we would have to win all but one game, so that means they'd have one game in theory to make up a 7-goal margin on us. You could argue, and I know you will argue.
I will argue.
Games, yes. They have their fixtures look more back.
I would just argue that I think if you think a 7-goal goal difference can't be overturned between now and the end of the season in either direction, I'd think if we were chasing them. If you think that the carrot of saying to a side, when you're coming up against a certain team and you go 3-0 up at half time and normally you'd stop, which both of these teams are capable of, but you don't stop and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. I think you need to take goal difference out of it in that sense. That's all I think. That's all I'm saying. And there's something else, Rob, I think, which is I think if they get the buffer, they don't need it. Whereas I think scoreboard pressure, with the way in which you look at the way they've dropped points against Southampton and against Crystal Palace, where they've got to 70 minutes and it's not happening for them and they haven't got a striker and they're banging on the door, I think with scoreboard pressure, this City side has got it in them to drop points. If there's genuine pressure of Liverpool, let's just imagine we draw this, we beat Man United and they kick off against Brighton and it's 0-0 in the Etihad on 60, they will be a bag of nerves about that, an absolute bag of nerves about that if it's not happening for them. Scoreboard pressure is everything.
You may be right. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples of when either side has shown themselves vulnerable to scoreboard pressure. I think in the season we run away with the title, they showed themselves vulnerable to it time and time again. But thereafter, the year before, they don't. So it's hard to read. We're always forever looking for precedent, looking for signs. At the moment, all I can go on is saying is the form of the last 8 weeks, the momentum is with us. We would lose it dramatically by losing, right? If we won it, the retention of momentum, the completion of 11th straight win, it would feel like there was a mighty swell behind us. And they would feel a huge amount of doubt. They would fear that this Liverpool side having real control over its own destiny it's just too much graft to try and overhaul and concentrate on, especially when they'd really, really like to right the wrong of last May and their defeat in the Champions League final to Chelsea. So you're right. At the end of the day, it's not this. It can't really decide the title. It's because asking a team to win 7 games afterwards is no small ask. Whatever happens, so it doesn't define the title, but it does point someone in a direction.
It points someone in a direction. The thing for me with them, Lizzie, and this isn't just for this game, but it's for all the games that follow. Rob mentioned there about them righting the wrong of last season, i.e. not winning the Champions League. The manager himself, their manager, hasn't won the Champions League since I think 2012 or even 2011, and he very much sees himself as a manager who should be doing that. They're in a situation, I think, where they've got a massive game coming up on Wednesday. The first leg, it goes okay for them, but it doesn't go entirely as they'd like. But also on the horizon, it looks like they've got a likely double header coming against Real Madrid, which I think would be overwhelming for that football club in a number of different ways, in a way in which it's not for Real Madrid. They've got the buffer at the top of their league as well. I'm of the view that, you know, if Liverpool can find a way to make City vulnerable on Sunday, there are more vulnerabilities to follow for this Manchester City team. And that's one of the things that's possible here, because we are genuinely talking about the 2 best football teams in the world. So if there's a way to make them vulnerable, then my God, we should be trying to take it.
Oh, 100%. But I suppose I do want to answer the question about the draw thing. Yes, I was going to say, I do think that happens from us with a win only. And I think it's going to be one of those ones where we're just constantly looking at the table. And I think that their running is much better than ours in terms of the league. I think they've got better fixtures, that I would probably back them to pick up the points. Anyway, I think the Real Madrid thing is interesting. And I think because the psychological pressure, I think, in a semi-final, thinking almost that you cannot, I don't want to say bottle it, that's probably the wrong word, but basically that they can't lose, because it's this thing that's hanging over them, the Champions League, and to deal with that amongst, if Liverpool, like you say, are on top by 2 points clear. I don't know how the fixtures fall in terms of who plays first on what we could do. I haven't really looked into it that much, but I would be quite interested to see how they do deal with that if they do go through. And this is another thing, is the Atletico game will be a little bit on the mind for when they've got to go and play them, because they're only 1-0 up there. Atletico work them hard. Like, and not that I saw obviously the whole game, but I saw a couple of the stats. There's something about how many shots on target. It was absolutely mad. So Atletico work them hard. And if you're Pep, listen, it's a great position to be in for them and for us to be thinking, oh yeah, but what about the Champions League? Oh, we've got the FA Cup semi. Oh, it's a great position for both. It's just, I know you're talking about vulnerabilities with City, but I can never really see it, if I'm being honest, just because they've hardly ever faltered. I think they're a brilliant, brilliant football side.
I think they're brilliant, but I think the really weird thing is, so when people talk about the running, so Skyjacker says there in the comments, and you've said it as well, Lizzie, the Reds have a much more difficult running than City. I dispute that completely. The reason why is I think Liverpool and City are so far ahead of the rest of the country, with the possible exception of Chelsea, that it sort of doesn't matter who they play. And if you look at where City have dropped points this season, twice against Crystal Palace, twice against Southampton, there's other fixtures in there as well. It's only because the lad at Wolves at the Etihad does something mad. Wolves have got to half time at 0-0. I don't think it matters who these 2 teams play, in a sense.
Everton.
Some teams Everton nearly get something, and they're abject, Rob. You know, I think there is this thing where ultimately, you know, if we both had Chelsea to play or we both had Norwich to play, then I'd go, well, all right, there's a bit of a difference there. For me, and I don't know what you think, Gareth, I think all the talk of the remaining fixtures, I'm more worried about Villa away than I'm about Man United at home. Man United are rubbish.
Yeah, Man United are shit and Everton are shit. And in normal circumstances in a season, you'd look at them and say, okay, they're difficult. They're not fucking difficult. We've gone away from home, battered Man United 5-0. We've gone to Goodison Park, won 4-1, and that flattered them. And we're in the mood, and we've won at City, and it's about just getting these other games out the way. I totally back them to do it. Tottenham is the one that worries me a little bit, in that they picked up form. Son and Kane are more than capable of winning a game.
I'm weirdly worried about Southampton, because they're more than capable of just being a pain in the arse on the day. They've stopped City twice. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
my point is, I'm not that bothered about, like, if City had Arsenal, I wouldn't think, they're going to drop points to Arsenal. I just go, they'll beat Arsenal. We beat Arsenal. We rolled them. They'll roll them.
I do see a vulnerability in City, and I think it's psychological. In that, just the stuff that comes out of mouths all the time. I think that's interesting that you brought that up. Like, you know, even Pep today, or certainly reported today, he's talking about that 14-point lead being false. And it's like he's almost getting ready to sow a narrative to say, well, we didn't blow a 14-point lead. Yeah, but it's in your head already, mate.
Yeah.
You're already talking about it. And I think that's possibly in all of their heads, in that, and that's why I think there's more pressure on them than there is on Liverpool. Liverpool, as you started the show with, have done fantastic to get to this position, to take it to this much of the wire, if you like. And City should have been able to say, false my arse. They should have doubled down, gone away, disappeared. Like everyone wrote that they were.
We should have gone and won at Crystal Palace. We won at Crystal Palace. Go and win at Crystal Palace.
Don't draw with Southampton. Don't lose to Tottenham. And we're not having all these conversations. And it isn't this big, huge game. With only 8 games remaining.
They were crap against Tottenham.
Yeah.
Can I just say,
they deserve to get beat.
So if you think of Southampton, Newcastle, Villa away, just 3 I can think of the 7 after. They're all not as good as Benfica. Not nearly as good as Benfica, I would say. Benfica have hauled themselves to the quarterfinals of the European Cup. But Benfica were made to look a very significant tier below Liverpool.
They play differently though, Rob. This is the thing. Like Benfica aren't going to, sit back and park the bus, are they? They're going to try and play football at their own football grounds.
But I think at their own grounds. I think the Villa crowd, the Newcastle crowd, even the Southampton crowd won't allow those teams quite to park the bus. And also, those sort of managers will want to do. They're not pure defensive coaches. I mean, I hope Stevie G. Actually, I don't even want to make bank gags about it. He's not going to throw any games for us. But I don't think there are teams that will park the bus against us. I don't know if you mean. I think they might be forced to sit back, and then so will Benfica.
Okay. Team then, Liverpool team, Manchester City team. They can worry about that, Lizzie. Liverpool team. For me, it's 3 from 4 in the middle of the park. Keita, Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho, and it's 3 from 5 in attack. I expect the back 4. I'm not even going to get into it with you. As the back 4 will be Alisson, Matip, Van Dijk, Trent, and Robertson. 3 from 5 in attack. 3 from 4 in midfield. Lizzie, what are you doing? So
midfield, I definitely want to see Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago. I think that's the midfield that needs to start for me. I think it's like the most solid. And I think as much as Keita's done really well, I think like we've spoke about the sort of type of football game it is. And I think Keita performs well when the game is a little bit more open. And I'd rather maybe have him on the bench to bring him on as something different. I feel like we do need Henderson on the pitch from the start. And then it's a no given for Fabinho and Thiago for me. The 3 is really interesting because I had a feeling of, I would like to see the 3 that we saw against Benfica. Diaz, Mane through the middle, and Salah on the right. However, I had this weird feeling. I just had this feeling because I don't think Klopp's going to expect to go there and win by 2, 3, 4, whatever. He'll want to win it in just any fashion possible. I just have this weird feeling he'll go with his old traditional front 3, and I don't know why. Just with that extra help that Bobby Firmino can give to the midfield and his dropping back deep and all the work he can put in. I just have this, it's like a gut feeling, not necessarily who I'd want to start, but I wouldn't be surprised if he'd done something a bit mad. And it's mad to say that would be mad now because of the luxuries we've got in the front 3. I just have this feeling he might do Mane, Firmino, and Salah. Don't know.
I've been thinking the same about Firmino. I just think he loves Firmino, and I actually thought Firmino looked much more like the Firmino of old the other week. He was much better. He had more energy. He was getting around, and I think you're going to get that. You can go and put pressure on their defensive midfielder. You can upset the apple cart if you like in terms of winning it back. And that's obviously going to be huge in this game. And I think maybe for that reason, I don't think you're dropping Mo Salah. There's obviously a conversation that you can have if you want to have it about he's not in his best form. And
no, he's not. On all phases of the pitch.
Yeah, he looks in a little bit in his own head, and you can see him beating himself up about his touch, about his finishing and everything else. But look, he's got a good record against City. He scored a lot of goals against City. They'll still be worried about him. There's no two ways about that. And maybe it's the type of game and fixture occasion that jolts him into something. Yeah, fingers crossed that being the case. I don't think you can drop Diaz. You've got to start him. I want to see him start, and it's only that middle role really where I think there's a question. And I think Firmino's the one who grafts the most out of Firmino, Mane, and Jota. So I think that gives them the edge of potentially starting. And then those other two who were missing out on the bench, well, what fucking great options they are. That would be where I would go with it, because I think the first goal in it, stating the obvious here, but the first goal is massive because City I don't think have lost once they've taken.
They haven't dropped points.
Once they've taken the lead this season, they haven't lost the games. So, they haven't dropped points, as you say. So, therefore, although I want to see them do all the things that we footy fans always say, I want to see them out the traps, in the faces, upsetting their fans, upsetting the team, all the rest of it. I just think Firmino adds that little bit of defensive quality as well.
You see, I think we take 0-0 on 60 and they don't. I don't think he wants 0-0 on 60, Guardiola. You know, the way in which a lot of the games where they've dropped points this season, they've been level come the hour and 75-minute mark, and I think that suits us more than it suits them. Rob, what do you think, team-wise?
I can't see, let's start with the front three. I can't see past his new best front three of Diaz, Mane in the middle, and Salah. I think in this game in particular, even if he wasn't as sure as I am that is his best front three, I think we don't forget, but Pep and Jurgen are students of each other's games. They understand, I think, watch and study each other's football obsessively. And I think the opportunity to throw a bit of a curveball or present Guardiola with something he's not certain of how it plays out in Diaz, I mean, there is no doubt that Diaz is the key selection for me. I also think Guardiola has spent a long time studying the Bobby Firmino aspect of Liverpool's game. And I don't think he's had a lot of evidence of how Mane impacts Liverpool through the middle. You can watch the games, but I still think that's a work in progress as far as Guardiola would be concerned. I think Mane is playing at quite a high level at the moment. I think he's playing at a higher level at Firmino, and he's giving us goal threat, and I think he's tracking back, and I think he's getting us up the pitch by holding the ball up really well. I mean, Salah would be the one I might have a think about, because I think his form is borderline wretched at the moment, for good reason potentially, but it is. Having said that, there's a reasonable gap between Tuesday and Sunday. He was taken off early. Of course, he's a man for the big occasion. It's unthinkable that he doesn't start this, but he would worry me more. But it is going to be Salah, Mane and Diaz. I'd be very, very sure of that. The back five, as everyone said, does pick itself unless there's some sort of late niggle with one of them. But in midfield, if you ask me to bet my house on it, it's Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago. But Naby Keita gave Jurgen plenty to think about. And people forget there's a really good Naby Keita performance sort of buried away in his cannon, which is a mercurial cannon at best. And that's in the Charity Shield, or the Community Shield we play against City, where we eventually lose on penalties at the beginning of the 1920 season. Naby's brought on at half-time to change things, and he's absolutely fantastic against Guardiola's setup in that game. He's hugely responsible, in my opinion, for actually turning that game in our direction. So, again, with Klopp's aim to disrupt, to confuse Guardiola and to do something he doesn't expect, nobody should be surprised if Naby Keita starts, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Okay. You can download the Anfield Wraps app if you want all the best build-up and all the best in the aftermath of what is an enormous game of football on Sunday, 4:30. In the Etihad. It will be the absolute business, and then everything else that follows. Obviously, Liverpool close to a Champions League semi-final, which may be against Villarreal or maybe against Bayern Munich. You didn't see that coming. Real Madrid moving forward to probably face Manchester City, but you never know about Atletico. The season is coming to the boil, an FA Cup semi-final in there as well. Download the app, use the tokens, enjoy everything that there is. There is so much of it in there at the moment at this time of the season. Are you taking a draw, Lizzie?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Gareth, you taking a draw?
No, absolutely not. And I don't see how the conversation behind the scenes is anything to do with taking a draw. I think going back to what we talked about before, about the idea that at City have blown this lead, and therefore, the sell, I think, almost to Liverpool's players is, you've done fantastic to get here. So let's go out there. This is cup final-esque. Let's go and overthrow them on their own turf and disappear in the sunset with the points no matter what. I think they've been saving themselves for this, and I think they go there and try and win. And I think we see balls out all the way through from Liverpool.
I think it's as much as them dropping points as it is us gaining as well. I just think I don't know. I can't see a draw being hugely beneficial.
You taking a draw up?
If you'd asked me yesterday, maybe even before the show starts, there's a part of me that would, because I felt the momentum is with us. It would leave us undamaged, our undefeated run still going, and the momentum was with us, and we would do it. But no, I think we have to win, and we will see that, because I think the only reason you take a draw is because you want the fun to last. Do you know what I mean? If you take a draw, it's still only 1 point in it, and the title race goes on. But if you gamble, you may go 4 points behind and feel it's over. But I think if we finish Sunday evening 2 points ahead of them, we will believe it's our league to lose.
It will be. That is the point. It will be our league to lose.
I mean in every sense we'll believe that. Not just, we got a bit of a lead, but every sense.
Every sense, indeed. Thank you very much to Gareth, to Lizzie, and to Rob for our inserts in there. Thank you very much to Chris McIntosh and to Michael McCambridge, John Gibbons as well, Andy Heaton for producing. It's been TAW Live on this Thursday, leading up to an enormous weekend, an absolutely enormous weekend. Can Liverpool do the business at the Etihad? 4:30 Sunday.